Since 2020, the Florida Nurses Association has intimately engaged with the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. As the crisis evolved, members came together to seek answers and solutions to addressing this menace. The first intervention was to come together to address the knowledge deficit surrounding caring for patients as they began to flood our healthcare facilities. Coordinated by FNA board member Darlene Dempsey, we held weekly webinars as new knowledge was emerging and treatments were evolving simultaneously. Nurses attended from across the state. Nurses from the Emergency Nurses Association, American Association of Critical Care Nurses, and others joined to support the effort and share their rapidly evolving expertise. Some nurses shared that this was the only source of education available to them. We also stayed connected to local and national media outlets to share our nurses' stories, as well as to provide information to the public. We formed a pandemic and disaster task force, which led to the creation of our COVID-19 resource page on the FNA website. This has evolved into a one-stop shop for COVID-related information. We continue to address issues that emerged as a result of the pandemic, such as the mental health issues related to the impact of the work related to caring for these patients and their families. We continue to address these issues. We are pleased to share that the Florida Nurses Association won Silver Recognition Award from the American Society for Association Executives in 2022 for our collective response to the pandemic. The task force felt it was important to tell the stories of Florida nurses who fought the battles on the front lines of the pandemic so that this time and their service will never be forgotten. This video is a small sample of those stories and a snapshot into the lives of Florida nurses during the COVID-19 pandemic.
In the Bible, it says that there's a pandemic basically about every 100 years. And if you look back in history, I think 1908 was the worst one that we've seen since COVID.
Don't call your doctor's office. Don't go to the grocery store. Wear a mask.
What was happening is I had patients that were sick.
Turn on the radio and it was like, leave your shoes outside. It was giving all these instructions we thought was a joke.
I just never knew what a virus can really do.
And the whole world changed.
Florida once again seeing long lines for testing as the state's case count skyrockets for the 7th week in a row.
The positivity rate rising for the 9th straight week in Florida, reaching 19.8%.
Ambulance services overwhelmed by emergency calls.
We have multiple COVID patients that want transportation.
Extremely long lines with an hours-long wait.
It's going to get worse before it gets better.
The best way to do that is by getting vaccinated. As hospitalization soar and ICUs are just running out of beds.
So it seems like every day Florida is setting a new record, whether it be hospitalizations or new infections.
Who I am. Graduated nursing school in 1991, did 10 years of oncology, 10 years at a large institution.
I am a nurse practitioner. I am an academician.
I've been a nurse for 43 years. Cannot imagine doing anything different.
I'm a critical care nurse. I work at UF Health Shands in Gainesville in the trauma ICU.
I'm a nurse practitioner, infection control.
I am a nurse of 39 years, mainly critical care, trauma, open heart.
I love what I do too much.
I know that every day that I go to work, I can make a difference to somebody one way or another.
When you take a patient and they come to you sick, and then they get to a state of wellness, and they leave better than when they came, so it's a good feeling.
Even though we're the employees, the residents that live there, they're also like our family.
When COVID hit at the time, I happened to be a clinical coordinator in academia in a family nurse practitioner program. And the impact that it had on my work at that time was a lot of the institutions were closing down all of the clinical experiences for the students.
All the hospitals in Florida canceled all their elective surgeries and all their elective procedures and kind of geared up for this big epidemic that actually didn't happen right away for us. It happened to us, it rolled down a little bit later because of, I think, our locality, because, we're kind of tucked away in Gainesville.
We had a meeting, you know, saying this was going on. And we had our first home where one of the staff was positive, and then it went like wildfire.
I knew COVID was here in January. I was treating it. So what was happening is I had patients that were sick. None of the traditional treatment plans were working. So I was giving a lot of azithromycin, a lot of corticosteroids. I was calling the health department. You can see a viral pneumonia on an x-ray.
My very first COVID patient was March 12th, 2020, at Orlando Health Hospital. And at the time, we didn't even have COVID tests. That's how unorganized we were. But my patient was a healthcare worker, and he had pneumonia, he had shortness of breath, he had the temperature of 101.4.
In December of 2019, we were beginning to see an uptick of colds and flus and things going on in different hospitals. And then in 2020, by March of 2020, schools, the school that I worked for at the time, announced that they were going overnight. We were going to be closing the school doors, and everybody was going to be working from home. The students were going to be online, and the whole world changed.
For me, the numbers started to grow. I think I had just retired, and when I started, you hear right away about trying to gear up for this. Immunization nurses feel really helpless in the beginning. That had been the way with H1N1 too. So our immunization nurses got involved with contacting people, doing testing, so you don't just wait, you know, and not do anything. We were involved with testing, early intervention, trying to talk to people about ways to protect themselves, protect their families.
I felt prepared for it. However, this was when you actually see, we don't know what it is, first of all, the same unknowns. And then we had patients that died within a week, healthy as you and me, never smoked, no comorbidities, and they're talking to you, and there's oxygenation of their body is just going down lower and lower and lower, and then a week later they're dead.
I actually had 3 people die on me in 16 hours, and it kind of crushed me a little bit. I was a little emotional thinking about it. I've lost friends, a little hard, excuse me.
And then your own people that work there, a security guard, 27 years old, that died, good friend of mine. And so I really expected I'm probably going to end up dying as well.
I know our hospital opened up 3 extra COVID ICUs, and they were either 24 beds or 30 beds. So we had a lot of people. We had a bunch of IMCs.
We didn't have any protection against it. There was no vaccine. So just numbers started going up and in the United States, and I knew we had nothing to fight it with. So yeah, we were going to have a problem.
It's not only an infection. It involves so much of the person.
I don't think a lot of people really understood how much it really affected the mental health and the stress of the nurses who were actually working at the bedside. They are really the true heroes.
I did a Zoom telemedicine, and the person was so sick. And I was scared. I'm like, they're gonna die in this house alone.
I was on call 24/7. So they would call me, Miss Carolyn, I don't feel well, what's going on? Or they would call me and say, you know, my daughter, she had a high fever. She went in to lay down and she's gone. And come to find she had COVID, so I get teary-eyed. So here I am dealing with the staff, and you have to also, you know, be strong for them.
The problem with COVID was you can be asymptomatic. You won't feel sick at all. and still be contagious. This has been a hard virus because of that.
And I watched him gradually go from being on high flow oxygen to BiPAP to a ventilator to dead in a week.
I am grateful that people, when I get the phone calls, I'm grateful that people are not having near the respiratory distress that they had in August of 2021 during the Delta.
It was an extremely difficult time. My husband was in line to get a double lung transplant about the time that this all hit. So his transplant was postponed, and we didn't know whether he would live through that.
And I shouldn't have to lose coworkers.
It's kind of like being in the Army and going to war. It really was.
Nursing is the best profession, better than sliced bread. It is. It's the caring for another person. I just like doing that.
That's what I love about nurses. We finally realized, when everybody said, oh, they're heroes, the nurses are the heroes, our frontline workers are heroes. Well, it wasn't like that before. It was zeros to heroes is what I always call them. Now we're back down to zeros because COVID's gone, virtually gone, but it'll always be with us.
My daughter went in to try to become a nurse, and during the COVID pandemic, and the person that trained her died of COVID. She was a nurse's aide. So my daughter got so afraid during that time. She was starting classes. She just quit. So how many good nurses have we lost because they don't keep us safe?
I think that we have learned in America that the healthcare workforce is strong, and that they were able to pull that off, as exhausting as it was. We have had many that have left the profession or planned to leave the profession, but they didn't do that yet. They're still with us, and they're still engaged in nursing because it's in your DNA.
We learned that, and we still do, that we could really work really effectively as a team. And we had to learn how to do that, and we did.
Nurses coming together, and again, I saw nurses out in our communities doing an incredible job. And we showed how important we are.
I never really left the bedside. That was my peace in one sense. If the day got bad, I just went on home to see the residents. And they said, hey nurse, and smiling, and that just made my day. So I said I could fight another day.
When anybody dies, they don't want to be in pain and they don't want to be alone. Nurses will always assure that happens. They will not be in pain and they will not be alone because that nurse will be there to hold their hand.
It's a difficult job. It's emotionally and physically draining. Sometimes, I work at night. A lot of people can't even do it.
The point is that I love the bravery of the nurses. They put themselves, to the side to help other people, sacrificing family time. They could have been home with their families locked down and all that stuff. But they came to work to help. And it wasn't about the money.
Just like the nurses at the bedside did incredible work, public health nurses were out there now when they got the vaccine vaccinating people and trying to keep them healthy. That's what we do and what we do so well.
I never saw anybody grouped together to be able to solve a problem. It shows how innovative and valuable our education of critical thinking comes into play. We solved so many different problems.
COVID's not going to go away. It's just going to transition into new mutations, and obviously we're going to learn more. So
it made me more aware of what I do and how I can help people and what it means to have somebody there when you really need them there, when you're all by yourself.
People had to work as a team. There was no me. It had to be us.
So I think that we have learned that our workforce is very resilient and that they were able to survive, and now we need to take care of them.
We saved, by vaccinating people, the nurses in the hospital saved the patients who were sick. By vaccinating people, we have saved thousands of people.
Viruses are not going to go away. Those little buggers are growing more and more viciously out there. And there is going to be. And with the changing climate, those things are going to be happening more and more, and they're going to cycle more and more frequently.
Their most important commodity is your nurses, because that's the way they look at us, a commodity or we're beans. But we're the most important beans. We're the pinto beans, man. We're the, you want to keep those beans, and that's how I felt, that take care of us first, then everything will fall into place. That's the way I see it.
I want change. I want change, permanent change, so that this never happens again.
Nurses are the backbone of healthcare. They truly are. And that we have the answers to how to get through these horrendous events that are going to continue to occur. We need to look at preventative health instead of reactive health, and making sure that we're using our public health nurses to keep people out of the hospital, keep them well, and make sure that they're able to respond appropriately to illness.
And we do need to give more money into public health so there can be more people working in public health and have more public health awareness, because a lot of this is in prevention.
The United States, just like it does with flu, can see what's happening on the other side of the globe before it gets to us, all right? And so if we have those controls out there, we have a strong public health infrastructure, we have a lot of vacancies in public health. Public health has had a really tough time, maybe more so than some of the other specialties in nursing. People haven't wanted to hear what public health is saying to try and keep people well. So they've, many of the people in public health have decided to leave that profession, but it's all about being prepared so that things are not as bad. So that's what I would hope for.
We're there in the beginning and we're there in the end. And we need that support. We need that fight at that level for us, because we're going to do our job. Well, it's not a job to us anyway. It's a passion, it's care. We're going to do that because that's where our heart is. But we need to they need to have our back.
We need to have staffing. We need to be able to increase our staffing. We need to put more money into nursing education so they can have more people come out as nurses. And we need to figure out a way to keep them at the bedside longer.
I think they need to see, like Stefan said, that we are a huge commodity and you need to take care of your staff. Again, like Stefan said, I have to quote him again, on our backs.
I think there was, if I remember right, there's a lot of money on the table still that hasn't been spent on COVID. I think billions. I think we should kind of pick up the nurses' salaries, CNA's salaries, RT's salaries, because we're losing nurses more than ever.
We're an important commodity. I have 11 years of experience. I mean, I could be a COVID nurse today if I had my brain and I had my energy. So when you injure one of us, that takes away a whole lot of training, a lot of years. Even with my degrees, I have 11 years experience of looking at patients, doing assessment. All that's lost when they don't protect us. So I feel like we deserve protection.
It was a very scary time for all of us.
As we make these changes, as we seek for these solutions, we need to remember that we're serving the patient. We all are, no matter. And I think if we can just keep that focus, all our outcomes will improve.
We hope that this video is a tribute to the thousands of nurses who made many sacrifices during this critical moment in healthcare history. The aftermath continues with shortages in all areas of nursing, from education to direct care. It is our sincere hope that lessons learned during this pandemic will lead to a more coordinated, more effective, patient-centered response in the future. The safety of our patients as well as a healthy work environment are the driving forces in our advocacy work.